Hey guys, welcome to class. Today will be a shorter class focusing on opening our hips and adding a little bit of strength into our core. So when you're ready, go ahead and meet me in a tabletop position on your mat. Finding your hands right under your shoulders, knees under your hips. And just start to bring some slow cat-cows in. So arching your back, pulling your chest through on your inhale. On your exhale, tucking the tailbone, rolling through the spine, tucking chin to chest. Just a few more like that at your own pace. Inhaling into cow. Exhaling into cat. You can start to bring some barrel rolls or lateral movements, whatever feels good to open up your hips and your spine. Just wiggling around. And when you're ready, bringing your way back into child's pose, you can let your tops of your feet rest on the ground. Pulling your fingertips far in front of you. Inhaling in here. And exhaling, fully releasing your head to the mat. On your inhale, looking forward between your hands, we'll scoop our way low to the ground, as low as we can stay, keeping our chest down as we come through into Cobra pose. Exhaling back into Child's pose. Inhaling, looking forward, scooping our chest through and up into Cobra, keeping the hips rooted in this position. And exhaling back into Child's pose. One more, inhaling, scooping forwards into Cobra. And exhaling, tuck your toes this time and rise into plank position. Taking a moment in plank to really integrate your core. Start by tucking, a slight tuck to your tailbone. Engaging your lower abs and then turning on your glutes again, so just squeezing your butt a little bit here. Making sure your shoulders are right over your wrists. Pulling your collarbones through, looking slightly in front of you. And on your exhale, slowly lowering back towards the mat. 3, 2, 1. And then bringing your hands out to 10 and 2 outside of your mat. Rising slowly, rolling your spine up into oscillating Cobra. So coming back down on your exhale. Inhaling, rising. Exhaling, falling. Last one, inhale. And exhale. As your head finds the mat, plant your hands to the mat. And rise back into plank pose, trying not to use your knees. Staying in plank for just a minute. Really grounding through the base of the thumb, the base of the index finger, and the base of the pinky, and finding that triangular attachment between each point of your hand. And then bending your knees, tilt your tailbone up to the sky and slowly shift your hips up and back into downward facing dog. Taking a moment here to really find your dog, making sure that your spine is straight, your knees are bent, your hips are lifted, pushing through your hands. And then bending your knees deeply. We'll spring off of our toes and roll through our spine, coming into plank pose. And then bending our knees again and rolling back into downward dog. Couple more like that, rolling forwards through the spine, really propelling off of your toes. And then bending your knees, pulling your hips back up. Last round, rolling into plank. Exhaling into dog. Rising your right leg to the sky, go ahead and open your hip and just bend your knees, start to roll your hip around in place. Opening up. And then bringing your right foot outside of your right hand. landing your back knee and rising your right arm up and back behind you as you twist towards the right. Exhaling, closing it back off, bringing your right hand to touch the ground in front of you as far forward as you can reach. And then rising it back up again, lifting up and back as far back towards your toes as you can manage. Exhaling back down in front of you. And then rising off your back knee, bringing your hands right by your right foot. Start to shift forwards and backwards in this lizard pose. You can come down onto your forearms if that's accessible. Finding a little bit deeper space into your hips. And then bringing your hands back towards the mat. We'll step our left foot right outside of our left hand into a wide-legged active squat. Arms can be out in front of you to counterbalance. Sitting deeply here for just a moment. And then rising arms up and overhead. Engage your glutes as you push your hips towards the space in front of you as your hands reach behind you. Exhaling back into active squat. Hands reach down to the mat, stepping all the way back into plank pose. And slowly lowering, bring your chest to the mat and then rising back up into plank pose. Drop your knees, drop your forearms, shift your hips back just a little bit. Look between your hands and scoop your chest through and up to upward facing. Exhale, rolling back over your toes, downward facing. Inhaling your left leg to the sky. Bend your knee, open your hip, and roll your hip around a little bit. Making big circles, loosening up the joint, and then bringing your left foot outside of your left hand. Drop your back knee. Inhaling, left arm up and back. Exhaling, reaching forward. Touch the ground as far forward as you can in front of you. And then exhaling, pulling back as far towards your toes as you can manage. Inhaling forward and exhaling back. Bringing your hands back to the mat, rising off your back knee and shifting forwards and backwards in this lizard pose. You can drop onto your forearms if that feels good. And then back onto your hands, we'll step our right foot outside of our right hand, rising into active squat. Take a moment here and sit a little bit deeper. And then rising your arms up and overhead, engaging your glutes to push your hips forward. Exhaling back into active squat. Hands find the mat, step back to a slow lower to the ground. Pushing all the way back into plank. And then this time rising your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Inhaling, right leg lifts. Exhale, bend through both knees. Tuck your right knee in towards your chest. With a deep bend in your left knee, push off of that, your left toes, as you bring your right foot in between your hands. Dropping your back leg, rising up, bring your hips 90 degrees. So rising all the way up, and then pushing your hands into your front leg, front knee. Slowly start to sink your hips down as you push your knee forward, thinking about pulling your right hip back, pushing your left hip forward, but still pushing your right knee over your toes. So really getting deep into that left hip flexor, hopefully. Sitting here for just a moment. And then dropping both hands to the mat. We'll rise off our back knee, spin our back heel down towards the ground. Bring our right fingertips inside of our right hand and rise our left arm up and overhead into side angle. You can bring your arm overhead or facing straight up to the sky. Straightening through both legs, find triangle pose. Keeping your core engaged here, engaging through the back leg. Pushing the front big toe into the mat as you spin your right side of your chest up towards the sky. Exhaling, bending back into your right knee. Both hands find the mat. And rise into three-legged dog, spinning onto the left side. So spinning into side plank on the left side. Try and bend your knee in towards your chest. You can try and grab it with your right hand, balancing for just a moment, and then releasing your right foot towards the mat. Find flip dog variation. Whatever you want. You can go into full wheel if you're ready, or you can stay with me, or you can stay in side plank. Inhaling, tucking your knee back in towards your chest. Try and step your right foot as far forward as you can, dropping both. So this time rolling onto both knife side edges of both feet, spinning open towards the right into this twisted lizard, sinking your hip towards the ground as your right arm reaches towards the space behind you. Inhaling, rising your hips off the ground, straightening through both legs, right arm overhead. Exhaling, bending into right knee, sinking hips down towards the ground. Right arm reaches back. A couple more like that. Inhaling, reaching forward, extending through the legs. Exhaling, sinking, reaching back behind you. Inhaling forwards, and then spinning back forward. Placing both hands on the mat, rise into three-legged dog. And exhale, pull again your right knee through and place your right knee by your right wrist, left foot out towards the left side, finding pigeon pose. Inhaling, rising tall, and exhaling, starting to sink down into your pigeon. Taking a moment to focus your breath on the space of the stretch that you feel, maybe on your outer right hip, maybe your left hip flexor. But close your eyes, envision that space, and take deep inhales, imagining that the breath is going straight to that area. As you exhale, keeping your focus on that area, releasing completely. Inhaling, rising up again, planting your hands, and finagle your way back into downward facing dog. Taking a moment to shake out your legs. Really extending through the spine, pulling the hips up, bending through the knees, finding your dog. Inhaling, rising left foot to the sky, and exhaling, bending through both knees, pulling left knee into chest and pushing off of your right toes to bring your left foot between your hands, dropping the back knee and rising all the way up, taking your hands, interlacing them on top of your left knee. Push into your knee as you sink your hips down, focusing still on pulling the left hip back, pushing the right hip forward, but keeping that knee going straight over the toes. Really just finding the expansion that you want today. Bringing your hands back towards the mat. Lifting off the back knee, spin the back heel down. Left hand inside of your left foot and rise your right arm, spinning your chest open into side angle. Arm position wherever you liked it in the last round. And straightening through the front leg, keeping the hips shifting back. Find triangle pose on the left side. Really extending through the upper arm. Pulling the hips back as you pull your chest towards the right side of the room. And then spinning back down, hands frame the front foot, and rising in to three-legged dog, shifting over into side plank on the right side. In whatever version you took, maybe you bent your knee in towards your chest, try to grab it with your hand, and then releasing the foot behind you and expanding into flip dog. Rolling back onto the right toes, bending the left knee into your chest and stepping your left foot forward as far as you can. Coming onto the knife side edge of both feet in this twisted lizard, and bending your hips down towards the mat as you extend your left arm up and overhead. Rising, straightening through. I did that wrong, but your left arm is overhead as you straighten through your legs. Sinking your hips down, bending through the left knee, pull your left arm back behind you. Inhale, rising up and over. Exhale, sinking down. Inhale, rising. Bringing your hand back to the mat. Rising into three-legged dog, and then just dropping the foot. Oh no, sorry, pulling the knee into pigeon pose on the left side. So the idea in pigeon is to eventually get your shin parallel to the top of the mat. It's not possible for everybody at every stage of life though. So what also can work is to bring your knee into the center of the mat and really bend through the leg. Finagle your way that feels most comfortable for your hips. That's all that pigeon matters. All that matters in pigeon is what works for you. But taking a moment when you get there to just rise out of your seat before sinking down. And if this is still uncomfortable for you, blankets, props, blocks, everything to elevate the left hip can be helpful. Again, bringing your breath into the area that you feel the biggest stretch. And then rising back onto your hands. Coming back into downward facing dog, shaking through the legs. Before you look forward, pull yourself rolling into plank position. And then find one push-up, slow, controlled, up. Releasing the knees and the forearms down. Inhaling, pulling your chest through and up. Upward facing dog. Exhaling, rolling over the toes. Downward facing dog. We'll go quickly through that. So inhaling, rising right leg. Exhale, pulling it through. Dropping the back knee, pushing the hands on the right knee in a low lunge. Spinning the back heel down as you bring your right hand right inside of your right foot, side angle. Straightening through the front leg, triangle pose. Exhaling, both hands frame the mat. Rising the right leg up and swiveling into side plank on the left side. Bending the knee in, stepping the right foot behind you. Maybe step your left foot up to meet your right foot. Bend into both knees deeply, bringing your hips towards your heels, and then pushing through the heels, rising the hips up. Find wheel pose. Maybe shifting your left hand to face the back of the mat. And then when you're ready, rolling back over into three-legged dog, pulling the right knee forward. Instead of pigeon, take your right foot and shift it out towards the left as far as you can, rising into whatever this is called. I think it's called fallen star. That's what we're gonna go with. And then releasing Inhaling, rising your right foot up. Exhaling, pulling it through. I did something wrong, but we're shifting onto the knife side edges of both feet and sinking our hips down, bringing our right hand behind us and straightening through. Sinking down, straightening through. Both hands find the mat, stepping back, downward facing down. Inhale, rise the left foot. Exhale, pull it through. Dropping the back knee, hands on top of the left knee, pushing it forward. Deep stretch. Exhale, drop the back heel. Side angle towards the right side of the mat. Exhale, straighten through the left leg. Triangle pose. Dropping both hands down. Rising three-legged dog and shifting onto side plank on the other side. Maybe dropping the left knee, the left foot behind you. Maybe bringing that right foot up, bending deeply, pushing our hips towards our heels, and then rising into full wheel on this side. Exhaling, returning to position, rising left leg up, pulling your knee in towards your chest and then shooting your left foot out towards the right. Rising into fallen star, bringing your gaze back over the other side of the mat. Rolling back down. Left leg finds the three-legged and then pulling left leg back through. Twisted lizard on this side, so knife side edge of both feet, reaching back as you sink, reaching forwards as you straighten. Reaching back and forth. Both hands find the mat, stepping back and then rolling forward into plank. A slow push-up. And this time as your knees find the mat, go ahead and shift back onto a seat, bringing your feet out in front of you, scooching forward a little bit if you need to. And from here, we'll just do a little bit of core to close off, finding low boat position. Levitating your feet off the ground, your hands out in front of you. And then rising your knees towards your collarbone into high boat position. Exhaling into low. Inhale, high. Keeping your spine straight, low. High, low. High. High. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice, and release. Taking a moment here, bringing your heels in towards your tush, finding bridge pose, hands by your hips, pushing your heels into the ground as you turn on your glutes and rise your hips up towards the sky. Exhaling, releasing. Inhaling, rising again. And exhale, release. One more. Inhale, rising your hips. Sitting here for just a moment. And releasing. A little bit more core, rising up into boat pose. This time shifting onto your left hip. So your knees are facing towards the left, arms are facing towards the right, out in front of you. It's like a twisted low boat, high boat, okay? So as we sink down into a twisted low boat on the left hip, rising, bring your knees towards your left armpit. Lower, rise, lower, rise, lower, rise, lower, rise for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then shifting onto our right hip. Same thing, other side, pulling the knees towards the right armpit this time, lowering and rising. Rise, lower, rise, lower, rise for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Releasing down onto the mat. Curling your knees in towards your chest. Go ahead and wrap your right leg over your left. So your knees are stacked on top of each other, and grab both of your feet with each hand. Pulling your feet in towards your hips. You can kind of feel an opening here. Just figure out where the best stretch is for you. And just start to feel your heart rate going back to normal. Breathing into your hips here. Taking a moment to find gratitude for yourself for coming onto the mat today. I personally have found it really hard lately to feel motivated to get back to doing classes, to get back to being active after a long holiday break. So it's important to recognize our efforts and to be grateful for what our bodies can do and for what our mind can do, getting us motivated again. Releasing your legs, shake them out a little bit, and then switch. So bringing your left leg on top, knees stacking, and then pulling your heels in towards your hips. Hopefully these shorter format classes will make it a little bit more accessible to keep your body moving. I've found, at least in my practice, that just getting on the mat every day is really the goal. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 2 hours, but just doing something for yourself is really important. Releasing your legs. Bring your feet up towards the ceiling and then grabbing the outsides of your feet, pulling your knees towards your armpits into happy baby. You can roll around here, find whatever feels good. And then slowly, whenever you're ready, releasing your legs out in front of you and finding your closing position today, Shavasana. Taking a deep breath to get settled and then completely releasing your back onto the mat. I'll leave you here today for however long you'd like to stay. As always, it's a pleasure to be teaching with you guys. Thanks for joining. Namaste.